Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This will be one of those rare occasions where I get to do all 4 sanctioning body heavyweight ranking updates, because contrary to popular belief, not all of these organizations, the WBA, WBC, WBO, and IBF, update their rankings monthly. The WBC in particular, it's only every few months, and generally after a big change. The WBA, we will start there first though, because they probably have the worst of the top 15 rankings. At least if you were to say, who are the top 15 guys in the world, you look at their rankings, it doesn't make sense. And they actually seem to have punished Michael Hunter and Filip Hrgović, who had occupied number 10 and number 11, and that was at the end of February. But for their most recent update, they've dumped those guys, and now they have at number 10 Daniel Dubois and number 11 Ibf Wbo, who both come into the rankings. So I guess presumably this must be because in the IBF, Michael Hunter and Filip Hrgović, there's been talk about an eliminator that they're going to be taking part in. As we know, though, the purse bid has been postponed for that, and it sort of seems to be that maybe that fight won't happen. It's hard to say. Although, you know, there has been talk about training camps, but we'll have to see what happens there. But seemingly on the back of them fighting down the IBF route in an eliminator, or, you know, what's been talked about, seemingly they've been punished. But Daniel Dubois, who lost to Joe Joyce, hasn't been cited in the ring since. He comes in at number 10. And it's kind of interesting to me, because why wouldn't you just sort of slide him further down, you know, to the back end of the top 15, enter there, but more sort of 2/3 the way down here. There has been talk about Daniel Dubois coming back soon. There's been a bit more media that's been around in the past week or two with Daniel Dubois sort of talking about his comeback, getting the desire back, wanting to prove people wrong, all that sort of stuff. So they must be thinking, okay, he's going to go the WBA route. There has been talk that maybe he should be targeting the likes of a Trevor Bryan, that sort of thing. But when you go that route, just bear in mind, one, if you try to go after Trevor Bryan, you'd have to be dealing with Don King. It's never a great situation. But two, the WBA is like some weird vortex. Once you start going down that route, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is promised, and you can kind of be languishing, not really doing much for quite a while. Bear in mind that Luis Ortiz, for quite a number of years, was going the WBA route, and it just never really worked out for him. And there's been all manner of fighters who've sort of experienced that as well, and often they end up going other paths because it's just cleaner. And the WBA having all these champions as well. Robert Helenius, the gold champion. And speaking of that, you have Adam Kovnatski, see here on the same as the previous month, number 6. Robert Helenius is the gold champion. What's happening? Are we getting this rematch? We're already, pretty deep into April. What's going on here? I mean, a lot of these guys, it's a question. I mean, Deontay Wilder at number 3. What's happening with him? Luis Ortiz, what's happening with him? He's 42 years old now. Kind of need to, want to see him active, and for his sake, he needs to be active because he's not getting any better the older he gets. And at number 2, obviously, we've talked about this eyesore, which is Bogdan Dino being up this high in the rankings for having done nothing. Who's he being fed to? Yeah, it's a little sort of hard to predict some of these things, and you scratch your head here. Charles Martin at number 7, another PBC heavyweight. What are they doing with him? Ajit Cabello, he needs to come back soon. Frank Sanchez, you've got Otto Wallin. A lot of guys who haven't fought necessarily, in 2021 so far, no fight scheduled. Anyway, we shall move on, but the major update there is Hunter gone, Hrgović gone, Daniel Dubois comes in, and Ibf Wbo comes in as well at 11. And I would also note there with the Wbo, he was put into the WBA rankings ahead of his fight with Brian Howard. So that's a little bit of a head scratcher as well. So wouldn't you sort of slot these guys, Dubois, Wbo, towards the bottom? But clearly not. So moving along now to the WBC Top 15 update, which essentially is swapping out Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte. So Povetkin, ahead of that fight with Whyte, had been the WBC interim champion. So Whyte, he won that fight, dispatched what looked like the corpse of Povetkin, because he didn't look good in that fight. Dillian Whyte is now the WBC interim champion. They've inserted Alexander Povetkin at number 8. As a result of that, Michael Hunter and Joseph Parker, they go at 1 spot because Whyte had been at 6. But the top 15 is pretty much, apart from that, really unchanged. There's a little bit of movement here and there. You have Charles Martin and Tony Yoka sort of swapping places, Yoka going up to 12th. But apart from that, pretty solid in terms of where people have been. No real movement apart from Whyte and Povetkin, a little bit of shuffling as a result. Deontay Wilder still tops the WBC top 15. Like I say, what's happening with Wilder? This mediation/arbitration. Is it over? Is it continuing? What is really going on here? So moving on to the IBF, which the update is there is no update. So it's the same top 15 from the month before. So you have Charles Martin at number 2 there. Number 1 is not rated because they're still trying to come up with the next IBF mandatory challenger. Bearing in mind Kubrat Pulev had occupied that role, I should say, ahead of his fight with Anthony Joshua. Now they're looking to potentially, it could be Michael Hunter versus Filip Hrgović for that position. Charles Martin, who was at the number 2 spot there, he seemingly had been in pole position, but wasn't willing to face Michael Hunter from all reports. So yeah, I guess that race for the IBF mandatory, it's on. But even if you get it, when do you get that fight? Because Kubrat Pulev had to wait basically 2 years to get his shot from winning it, the mandatory slot against Hughie Fury, and that was in mid 2018, something like that. So yeah, we shall see what happens with the IBF mandatory slot. But as I say, it's the same top 15. And moving on lastly to the WBO, we have the same exact situation as the IBF. An updated ranking, no change. And this is one of these weird situations where the WBO had been lagging 2 months behind, because generally they're pretty good updating their rankings monthly, but for whatever reason in the past few months they've really sort of slackened off. So what you're seeing here on screen, this was the update for March. So hopefully there is going to be an update for April soon, but that update for March was lagging behind by a month. And previously the update for February had lagged behind for 2 months. So they're slowly catching up, but I don't know what the situation is, but clearly not a lot of movement in their top 15. They've decided that the same top 15 should be the top 15 this month. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Movement in the WBA, Hunter and Hrgović out, Ajagba and Dubois in, and Alexander Povetkin makes his way into the WBC rankings after Dillian Whyte relieves him of that WBC interim title. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.